When my son was 10 years old, he asked me a question I'll never forget. He said, "Mommy, where do you go when you go away behind your eyes?" And he started to cry. In that moment, my heart sank. I knew that my worst fear was coming true. My damage was damaging my kids. I wanted to lie to him. I wanted to say, "I don't go anywhere, I'm right here." But the truth is, I've been disappearing behind my eyes for a very long time. Ever since I tried to perform CPR on my father as he was dying, and he died in my arms. Ever since then, I've had PTSD. I get panic attacks. I have these intrusive thoughts that just won't stop. I startle at the least sound, especially in the middle of the night. My body is just ready to run at any moment. But I always had this frustration. When will I recover? If this happened so long ago, why am I not better yet? Whenever I would get really stressed out, really panicky, my brain would suddenly go somewhere else. Whether I would focus on my research, the data I was coding, the book I was reading, the patient I was treating in front of me, suddenly I would be completely calm. The panic would go away, my heart rate would slow down, and in some ways it was really helpful. Certainly let me be productive, but a little bit it felt like malware that was taking over my brain. I had no conscious control over it. I didn't know how to make it stop. It was running me. I felt so damaged, and I knew it was inevitable that my damage would damage my children. How could it not? And I just had this frustration, like, when will I get better already? Am I such a drama queen? Why am I still traumatized? It was so long ago. Maybe some of you have also asked this question. If trauma happened in the past, why are we not better yet? And the truth is, I kind of wish someone had told me this. We are set up to make this mistake. Trauma is not a wound, and trauma is not a checklist. Trauma is any experience that you undergo that's too big for your brain to metabolize, that completely shakes your sense of safety in the world, or that shakes your sense as someone who's a competent operator of this world. Like, this is a world that I understand, and I know how to operate within it. If something like that happened to you, congratulations, you're traumatized. And that's okay. Now, here's the thing. We're gonna make it a little bit more specific. Suppose you have a child and she's living in a home where her parents are functional alcoholics. Sometimes you come home and they're regular. Sometimes you come home and you better keep everything quiet because dad's just looking to beat whoever crosses his path because he has a hangover. But you don't know which parent you're gonna come home to. That's not on that symptom checklist, but that's gonna really shake your sense of self and someone who knows how to operate the world. Now, your brain cannot operate in a world that feels unsafe. Your brain needs what I call the illusion of safety to be able to keep working. So your brain says, I'm gonna restore my sense of safety. What am I gonna do? I'm gonna create if-then rules. And when I create these if-then rules, you'll just follow those rules and you'll feel safe. I call this the trauma app in your brain. So what your brain says is, perhaps you're that little girl whose dad is unpredictable. Sometimes he's enraged, sometimes he's calm. Maybe you say, I will keep everybody around me calm and quiet. I will always soothe the troubled waters. I will never let anyone be stressed in my presence. Then I can feel safe. You become a people pleaser, you fawn. Maybe you're in a home where there's a lot of aggression and you say, I will lash out. Nobody is gonna make me feel small. I will explode no matter what. I will never be small again. Maybe you do what I do. You're always perfect. You never make a mistake because my mistakes kill people, right? So I'm never gonna make a mistake again. You're gonna go away inside your brain and disappear so you don't have to feel that level of stress ever again. Trauma is not a scar. It's software. It's not a checklist. It's so much bigger than a checklist. It's something that's too big for your brain to metabolize. Now I'm going to prove this to you by talking about how trauma works in our brain. So right now, everyone in this room, I want you to think of your favorite teacher, the one person who made you look forward to going to school, the one person who lit up your life. I'm noticing a lot of you moving your eyes. How many of you have a face or a name? I see a lot of hands raised. Some of you don't. Maybe not everyone had the greatest teachers. So think of the name of your childhood pet, or the street you lived on as a kid, or the best meal you ever ate. You just activated your hippocampus. That is the part of your brain that's responsible for what we call narrative memory. Let's understand other parts of your brain that have to do with trauma. The emergency response center of your brain is called the amygdala. The amygdala is responsible for your stress response. If right now here in this room, the fire alarm would go off, everyone's amygdala would activate, it would go danger, and you would have a ton of adrenaline going through your bloodstream. The adrenaline would give you a ton of energy. Your big thigh muscles would have energy. Your heart would be pounding. Your stomach would be clenching because you don't need to digest food right now. You need to run. Your fingers and toes would feel cold because you don't need blood in your fingers and toes. You're not writing neatly now. You're running out the door. That's what our amygdala does. We then have a part of our brain called the prefrontal cortex. This is the part of your brain that's responsible for language, for logical thinking, and for acting in accordance with your values. When your amygdala is sounding, your prefrontal cortex can't do very much because how many of us can concentrate when a fire alarm is blaring? We also have our bodies. Our bodies are like the battery that powers this whole system. Our bodies are one giant keep me alive machine. So now, everyone with me so far? Now let's get super technical. There's a part of your brain called the DMN, the default mode network. It's what your brain is doing when your brain isn't doing anything much at all. Hopefully no one in this room has their DMN activated right now. Your DMN is what's active when you're daydreaming. If we put you in an fMRI machine, we ask you to daydream, your DMN will turn on. Now, there's a part of your DMN called the PCC, the posterior cingulate cortex. The PCC is responsible for what we call self-referential thinking. Basically, that's a fancy way of saying, what's happening right now and what does it mean for me? Because if you think of the DMN as a screensaver, it has to always be ready to reactivate the system at any moment. So that's the job of the PCC. It reactivates when something's happening. Imagine you're daydreaming in class, not that anyone in here has ever done such a thing. And suddenly you hear your name, right? That's your PCC like activating, wait, she called on me, let me pretend I was listening. So your PCC, your posterior cingulate cortex, lights up. The part of your brain that mediates what's happening to me right now. If you think about that, the researchers actually, unusually for researchers, put this very poetically. They said, traumatic memories are fragments of the past intruding on the present. They're not a scar, they're software, and they're software that's operating right now, which means that trauma app activates whenever your trauma memory is activated. Anyone triggers you, reminds you of it, your trauma app activates. We're coming to another word, an interesting word that people very often misunderstand. The word is trigger. How many of you have heard the word trigger in your lives? How many of you are a little sick of hearing the word trigger in your lives? That word is a little overused. So let's redefine the word trigger. A trigger is anything that turns on your trauma app. So imagine that little girl who always kept everybody calm because otherwise dad was gonna beat somebody. So that little girl is in a situation where she really wants to go home on time for work. Her boss is asking her to stay late. And her people pleasing is saying, I can't say no. I need to keep everybody happy. I need to keep everybody calm. She means to say, no, my kids are waiting for me. I promised them I'd be home early. I need to be the kind of mom I value being. I want to go home. Every fiber of her being wants to say no, and yes comes out. The trauma app activated before her conscious thought. That's what I mean by a trigger. That's what I mean by a trauma app. Here's the good news, and I will say this about a lot of things. For example, this has never happened in my house or anything like that, but suppose your 4-year-old is running down the hall. He has taken off his shoes for the 4th time. You are going to be late for work. You mean to stay calm and stay with him and, get him to get those shoes on. And yet the trauma app says, I cannot be late. I'm perfect. I need to stay in control of this situation. Before you know it, your voice rises, you're yelling, the kid's crying, the shoes are on, and you feel terrible about yourself. That was not you. That was your trauma. So many post-traumatic parents say to me, what kind of a parent am I? What's wrong with me? How can I let my kids trigger me? Don't I love them? Like, why would my kid trigger me if I love them? And I have really good news. Your kids don't trigger you. Your kids reveal your triggers, right? Because now we can figure out the if-then rule. Whatever you did that was not consistent with your values, that thing that you did not want to do and you did anyway, the yelling, the dissociating, the perfectionism, the criticizing, the saying yes when you meant to say no, any of those things, all of that is not you. It's your trauma app activating before you get to parent. So understand that, because your kids don't trigger you. They reveal your triggers. And that's good news, because we have to reveal it to heal it. Now that we know our triggers, we can do something about them. Our kids are the map, the mirror, and the motivator out of our trauma, because our kids are the ones who hold up a map to us of where we need to go. Like when my son said to me, where do you go when you go away behind your eyes? He was giving me a map. I needed to go to the place where I could be a present mom. In another example, suppose you are a mom who's a people pleaser. You have a teenage daughter. She asks you for something. It's totally inappropriate. It's way too scary a movie. It's a party that you are not comfortable with. It's a randomly shaped bit of plastic that costs more than your mortgage. You'd really like to say no. She makes you feel really bad when you say no, the way only teenage girls can do. Anyone who's parented a teenage girl knows what I mean. And every fiber of your being wants to say no. You're the adult. You know that this party isn't good for her. You know that movie's too scary. You know that you don't value buying that ridiculous piece of plastic. You just don't. And you find yourself saying yes. You really wanted to do it. She's the map. I need to be a mom who can have boundaries. I need to be comfortable with her discomfort. Sometimes moms need to say no. And yet, here I am saying yes. So she's the map. Your kids are also the mirror. They hold up to you an image of yourself, and they really reflect you back to yourself in a way that actually matters. I've been going away behind my eyes for a very long time, and in every other instance of my life, it worked for me. At work, let me tell you, my boss loved it. When my kids said it to me, though, I had to look in the mirror and say, I need to change this if it's damaging him. And they're the motivation, right? Because your kids are the best reason why. Of course we can get through our trauma without kids. Of course there are other reasons why. But our kids are the best reason why very often. Now, so many people ask me, they say, like, you're an expert on PTSD. You treat trauma for a living. Are you better yet? Have you healed? Is your PTSD better yet? And it's such an interesting question, and I kind of had bad news for all of you. Of course I'm not better yet, because trauma is not a wound. How do I reprogram my trauma app? The first thing I do is when I notice my trauma app activating, I thank the app. I say, thank you, trauma app. You're here. You want to help me. You want to protect me. You were what kept me alive during all those years when I was having panic attacks and I couldn't survive. You really were helpful. I appreciate it. Thanks for your suggestion that I yell right now or that I dissociate and go away behind my eyes right now. Appreciate it. It's an option. It's not the option I'm going to be using. And what happens with an app when you deselect its permission? So you deselect the permission, and what does the app do? It says, warning, deselecting this permission may destabilize the entire system. Are you sure you want to proceed? And how does it do that? It makes you feel a lot of stress. So you're the mom who doesn't know how to say no, and you say no, and you feel a ton of stress. I want to run away behind my eyes, and I'm going to force myself to stay present and name 2 things that are green and 3 things that are blue and 1 thing that's red, and stay in the moment and breathe. I really am going to do that right now. The trauma app is going to make me feel intensely uncomfortable, and I'm going to do it anyway. I may sing my instructions instead of yelling them. I may decide to dance with my kids to manage my stress. I'm going to do something else. Whatever my trauma app is asking me to do, I'm just going to mindfully do something else instead. And I say just, but that's the wrong word, because I think just is a 4-letter word. Rather simply, right? I'm simply going to do something else. And as I keep practicing doing something else, it starts to become second nature. I start to reprogram that app one parenting interaction at a time. I start reclaiming the software in my brain for my own purposes, one interaction at a time. Not always, not perfectly, but I get to reclaim it every time I practice that. And children will give you many, many opportunities to feel stress and practice that. You're that mom who doesn't know how to say no, and you will have many opportunities to say to your kid, I get that no is hard to hear. I'm sticking with my no anyway. And the more you do that, the better it will be. And that will generalize to other areas of your life. You'll start being able to say no to your boss. You'll start being able to say no to your family. You'll start being able to say no to that frenemy that sometimes makes requests that you don't like. You're reclaiming resources from the trauma app, because trauma is not a scar. It's not past memory. You're not lazy or a drama queen if you're still holding on to your trauma. That's not what you're doing. You're not holding on to it on purpose. You have an operating system in your brain that's activating. Some of you may have thought that this was going to be a talk about parenting. You thought like, oh, she's a child psychologist. She's going to teach us how to get the 4-year-old to put on their shoes, or get the teenager to accept a no, or the million of other things that parents need to learn how to do. I didn't teach you parenting in this talk. What I taught you instead was how to be a parent. Because as soon as we reclaim our admin permissions from the trauma app, we reclaim our psychological resources for our own purposes, that's when we truly start to heal. That's when we start to embrace our superpower. And if we're doing it for the sake of our children, our real world children, or maybe our inner children, we'll never have a better reason. Thank you.